Welcome back, guys, to another video. This is the Fluffy Fish here. We're bringing back an old series that we used to do. We did it with Mahomes in the past, and we're gonna kick it off with Joe Burrow. We are going to sim and see what the rest of his career holds. Will he ever win a Super Bowl? Will he stay his whole career on the Bengals? Will he win an MVP? Right? We don't know. Injuries are on, everything's on in this, and we're gonna sim year by year, see how he's doing, and see where everything ends up. So without further ado, I'm going to cut to the end of this year, so I'll see you guys in a few moments and we'll continue there. All right, guys, so we're finishing up on simming here, and then we will check out the stats, see who won the Super Bowl, see if the Bengals made it, how far, what was their record, and yeah, let's check in on Joe Burrow. Obviously, he's dealt with a lot of injuries these last several years, pretty much his entire career, and it's kind of derailed things, right? Last year, potentially MVP season, but unfortunately, the team didn't even make the playoffs. So you can't be an MVP, Joe Burrow said it himself, when the team isn't even succeeding. So let's pull up the 2025 season recap and see what happened. So it looks like division rivals, the Baltimore Ravens, won 34-21 versus the Buccaneers. Lamar Jackson won the Super Bowl MVP. And on the right side, it does look like Joe Burrow did get an MVP in this year. So there is that alongside the rest of the stats there. So Joe Burrow must have had a big year. Bengals are second in AFC North at 10-7. One of the best teams in the league, it looks like. Almost 5,000 yards passing for Joe Burrow, 43 passing touchdowns. Jamar Chase at the bottom there with 1,400 yards and 10 touchdowns. All right, so pretty solid year in 2025 for Joe Burrow, but still not able to see that team success. Let's head into the next year and see how that one goes for Joe. All right, so we are at the 2026 season recap. Looks like this was a down year for the Bengals. Oh my goodness, you can see right there at the middle of the screen, they went 4-13, right? Dak Taylor's approval ratings not looking good. Let's check out what happened. A little bit more detail. So Patrick Mahomes won the MVP. Buffalo Bills got their Super Bowl win. The linebacker got Super Bowl MVP for the Bills. All right, let's take a deeper dive into this and see what happened here and why the Bengals were at the bottom of the AFC North, right there with the Jets at the bottom of the AFC. But look here, it seems like, you know, surprise, surprise, but Joe Burrow second in passing yards. You know, 35 passing touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Pretty solid, kind of like his first few years in the league. When he had a healthy season, it's kind of what he did. Down year compared to last year, touchdown, interception wise, but, you know, still pretty good year. Just seems like, yeah, rushing attack is the worst in the league. Horrible. And I imagine defense did not help out. They were 20th in overall offensive yards, even though he was second in passing yards, and dead last the team was in defensive yards. But this is not the Bengals sim. This is the Joe Burrow sim. So he had another good year. Just seems like the team once again let him down. So that's going to do it for the 2026 season recap. We're going to hop in and start simming to 2027 and see if the Bengals and Joe Burrow can have a bounce back year next year. All right, guys, so finishing up the sim to the end of the 2027 season. And we're going to check in on how Joe Burrow is doing. Did he carry them to a bounce back year, or did they have another similar letdown season? And it looks like they went 12-5, so bounce back. But as you can see at the top of the screen, they did not make the Super Bowl. Looks like Brian Branch and the Patriots ended up winning the Super Bowl. Kind of a throwback Super Bowl, Giants versus Patriots. Joe Burrow got another MVP, so that's his second NFL MVP for Joe Burrow. Let's go ahead and check out his stats, and maybe let's look at where they fell short in the playoffs. See how close he might have gotten. So first in the NFL passing yards, 5,400 passing yards, 44 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. That is 9 more touchdowns and 4 less interceptions than last year. With his rating, just had to be one of the best in the league. Offensive yards, first in the NFL. Defense, 31st in the NFL. So similar-ish, but it seems like they must have had a lot better. The rush attack wasn't even that much better. Joe Burrow just was able to carry that awful defense to the playoffs, and unfortunately, once you get to the playoffs in December and January football, you're going to need a defense. But oh my goodness, he threw so much that 3 different wide receivers had over 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns. Wow. All right, that has to be close in the NFL record books for a season in passing yards. Looks like that is Peyton Manning still at 5,477, and Joe Burrow was about 50 short of Peyton Manning's NFL record. That's 100% going to set the record for the Bengals, however, 100%. We should be able to look at quarterback legacy and where they're at on the board. So it looks like Patrick Mahomes is still at the top, obviously, with his 3 Super Bowls and 15 yearly awards. But then you have Aaron Rodgers below him, Josh Allen, Lamar, and then Joe Burrow is climbing. He has that championship, but he does not have a Super Bowl, obviously, from a few years back now. So before we start simming, let's go ahead and check out maybe where they fell short in the playoffs last season, if we are able to do that. Okay, so here's the playoff picture and what that looked like this year. The Bengals had a first round bye. They were the number 1 seed and ended up losing to the Patriots, who ended up winning it all. Mike Vrabel went to the Titans, who were actually in the championship, AFC championship, and beat his old team. And then they ended up taking on the Giants, who they beat against in the Super Bowl. So Bengals, number 1 seed, but again, once it comes down to December football, Joe Burrow is not able to get them to the Super Bowl. Let's go ahead and start simming to the end of the 2028 season. All right, guys, we just finished up the season, but as you can see, I believe it's 2028. We are not at the off season yet. That's because the Bengals have made it to the Super Bowl. So came as a wild card team, number 3 seed versus the Ravens. Won pretty handedly there. Ended up going up against the number 2 seed in the Broncos. Beat them. Defense is showing up and beat the Bills. Now we're in the Super Bowl against the Giants. The Giants were in the Super Bowl last year, I believe, or one of the previous years against the Patriots and lost. So here we are now in the Super Bowl with Joe Burrow, and it's time to go ahead and jump in and sim the game, see how it goes for the Bengals and Joe Burrow. Not going to play any of the moments, not going to do anything like that, just going to sim through, give a little bit more attention to this game, but we are going to super sim it. Struggling to figure out how to do this. I don't usually do it. I don't know. Okay, so Josh Jacobs is the running back for the Bengals now. Okay. They're driving down the field. Big reception there. Okay. Did not get a score on that drive, even though we're on their side of the field. They punted it back to the Bengals. Cincinnati punts it to the Giants. The Giants get the first points of the game. Towards the end of half here. All right, so going into halftime, it is 0-7. Joe Burrow and the offense have been shut out in the Super Bowl by the Giants. So far, it's not looking good for the Bengals. They did kick a field goal there to take it to 3-7. Joe Burrow has not been his best game of the year, and huge play by the Giants to go up 3-14. The Bengals can answer, and Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow answers with a touchdown of their own. They go for 2, do not get it. Bengals have the ball, fourth quarter, under 2 minutes. Give it back to the Giants. Turnover on downs. Giants kick a field goal, and that's going to be all. But does it. So the Giants end up winning the Super Bowl, beating the Bengals 17-9. Joe Burrow still can't get a Super Bowl win. Has a handful of MVPs, but now has 2 Super Bowl losses on his resume as well. He's 0-2 in the Super Bowl. So that's going to do it. We're going to get out of the game now. We're going to go to the next week and figure out, kind of recap on the season. How did Joe Burrow do individually? Obviously not every game or like a Super Bowl, it's kind of a team game, but the defense did its job. Joe Burrow just failed to deliver in the Super Bowl. And he didn't score a single touchdown, and so that's going to happen. Cam Scatterbo gets the Super Bowl MVP in the 2028 season. Super Bowl LXIII. Joe Burrow did get his 3rd MVP. Just when it mattered the most, he was shut out. So, gonna hop over to his stats real quick, cover it, and then we will sim again. Joe Burrow, first in passing yards, first in passing touchdowns, first in passer rating. Absolutely carrying this team once again. He did just break the NFL record for a single season passing yards, but was nowhere near Peyton Manning's passing touchdowns. Still 8 shy, just to show you how good of a season that was for Peyton so late in his career. I'm gonna head at this point. I am going to sim towards the end of Joe Burrow's career. At this point, he has 0 Super Bowl wins, but 3 MVPs, and we're gonna see how he ends his career compared to other quarterbacks. See you guys there. Alrighty guys, so I simmed ahead a few years, and in 2031, Joe Burrow, after 12 years in the NFL, has decided to retire. Let's go ahead and take a look back at his career and what he accomplished after he inevitably hangs up his cleats in 2031. His last, how do we go back and see the previous years? That's what we need to figure out here. So league history, his final season, they did not make the Super Bowl, but as you see here, he did win an MVP. If we go back to 2030, he won another MVP. And in 2029, he did not. So 2028 was the Super Bowl that we simmed, where we lost. Looks like Joe Burrow ended up probably pretty high up as a quarterback, all said and done. Yeah. So he ended up finishing with higher legacy score than Patrick Mahomes after it's all said and done. He had about 5 or 6 MVPs, won almost every year, won 2 AFC championships, making it to the Super Bowl twice, and coming up with not a single Super Bowl. Probably going to go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks to never win a Super Bowl, up there with Dan Marino. Patrick Mahomes never won another Super Bowl since we started simming. Josh Allen got one, Lamar got another, but as you can see here, Joe Burrow, great career, but did not get the Super Bowl win that I'm sure he probably would like the most. So that's going to do it for this video, where we sim through Joe Burrow's career and see what would happen. This is pretty much, if he was to stay healthy, what would happen. You can see that his defense kind of let him down for a lot of it, but on that one Super Bowl that we did make it to in sim, it was obvious that Joe Burrow is the one that let the team down. So regular season, GOAT. Hard to say someone with 0 Super Bowls is the greatest of all time, though. You just can't. So if you did enjoy the concept and would like to see more players, let me know down below. Comment what players that you would want me to do this with next, and any other stats or things like that you'd want to see. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate you guys. I'll see you next time.